Our eyes met again. You have been pushing me around, I asked. Some people might say that, smiled Rich Dad. I would say that I just gave you a taste of life. What? A taste of life? I asked, still angry, but now curious and ready to learn. You boys are the first people who have ever asked me to teach them how to make money. I have more than 150 employees, and not one of them has asked me what I know about money. They ask me for a job and a paycheck, but never to teach them about money. So most will spend the best year of their lives working for money, not really understanding what it is they're working for. I sat there listening intently. So when Mike told me you wanted to learn how to make money, I decided to design a course that mirrored real life. I could talk until I was blue in the face, but you wouldn't hear a thing. So I decided to let life push you around a bit so you could hear me. That's why I only paid you 10 cents. So, what is the lesson I learned from working for only 10 cents an hour? I asked. That you're cheap and exploit your worker. Rich Dad rocked back and laughed heartily. Finally, he said, "You best change your point of view. Stop blaming me and thinking I'm the problem. If you think I'm the problem, then you have to change me. And if you realize that you're the problem, then you can change yourself, learn something, and grow wiser. Most people want everyone else in the world to change but themselves. Let me tell you, it's easier to change yourself than everyone else." I don't understand, I said. Don't blame me for your problems, Rich Dad said, growing impatient. But you only pay me 10 cents. So what are you learning? Rich Dad asked, smiling. That you're cheap, I said with a sly grin. See, what you think? So you think I'm the problem, said Rich Dad. But you are. Well, keep that attitude and you'll learn nothing. Keep the attitude that I am the problem. What choice do you have? Well, if you don't pay me more and show me more respect and teach me, I'll quit. Well put, Rich Dad said. That's exactly what most people do. They quit and go looking for another job, a better opportunity, and higher pay, actually thinking that this will solve the problem. In most cases, it won't. So, what should I do? I asked. Just take this measly 10 cents an hour and smile. Richard smiled. That's what the other people do, and that's all they do. Waiting for a raise, thinking that more money will solve their problems. Most just accept it. Some take a second job, working harder, but again, accepting a small paycheck. I sat staring at the floor, beginning to understand the lessons Rich Dad was presenting. I could sense it was a taste of life. Finally, I looked up and asked, so, what will solve the problem? This, he said, leaning forward in his chair and tapping me gently in the head. This stuff between your ears. It was at that moment that Rich Dad shared a pivotal point of view that separated him from his employees and my poor dad, and led him to eventually become one of the richest men in Hawaii. While my highly educated but poor dad struggled financially all his life, it was a singular point of view that made all the difference over a lifetime. Rich Dad explained this point of view over and over, which I call lesson number one. The poor and the middle class work for money. The rich have money work for them. On that bright Saturday morning, I learned a completely different point of view from what I had been taught by my poor dad. At the age of 9, I understood that both dads wanted me to learn. Both dads encouraged me to study, but not the same thing. My highly educated dad recommended that I do what he did. Son, I want you to study hard and get good grades so you can find a safe, secure job with a big company and make sure it has excellent benefits. My rich dad wanted me to learn how money works so I could make it work for me. These lessons I would learn through life with his guidance and not because of a classroom. My rich dad continued my first lesson. I'm glad you got angry about working for 10 cents an hour. If you hadn't got angry and had simply accepted it, I would have to tell you that I could not teach you. You see, true learning takes energy, passion, and a burning desire. Anger is a part of that formula. For passion is anger and love combined. When it comes to money, most people want to play it safe, feel secure. So passion does not direct with them, fear does. So is that why they'll take jobs and with a low pay? I asked. Yes, said Rich Dad. Some people say I exploit people because I don't pay as much as the sugar plantation or the government. I say the people exploit themselves. It's their fear, not mine. But don't you feel you should pay them more? I asked. I don't have to. And besides, more money will not solve their problem. Just look at your dad. He makes a lot of money and he still can't pay his bill. Most people given more money only get into more debts. So that's why the 10 cent an hour, I said, smiling. It's a part of the lesson. That's right, smile rich dad. You see, your dad went to school and got an excellent education. So he could get a high paying job, but he still has money problems because he never learned anything about money in school. On top of that, he believes in working for money. And you don't? I asked. No, not really, said Rich Dad. If you want to learn to work for money, then stay in school. That's a great place to learn to do that. But if you want to learn how to have money work for you, then I'll teach you that. But only if you want to learn. Wouldn't everyone want to learn that? I asked. No, said Rich Dad. Simply because it's easier to learn to work for money, especially if fear. If fear is your primary emotion when the subject of money is discussed, I don't understand, said with a frown. Don't worry about that for now. Just know that it's fear that keeps most people working at a job. The fear of not paying their bills, the fear of being fired, the fear of not having enough money, and the fear of starting over. That's the price of studying to learn a profession or a trade. Then, working for money, most people become a slave to money and then get angry at the boss. Learning to have money work for you is a completely different course of study, I asked. Absolutely. Rich Dad answered. Absolutely. We sat in silence on that beautiful Hawaiian Saturday morning. My friends had just started their little league baseball game. But for some reason, I was now thankful I had decided to work for 10 cents an hour. I sensed that I was about to learn something my friends wouldn't learn in school. Ready to learn? Asked Rich Dad. Absolutely, I said with a grin. I have kept my promise. I have been teaching you from afar. My rich dad said, at 9 years old, you've gotten a taste of what it feels like to work for money. Just multiply your last month by 50 years and you will have an idea of what most people spend their life doing. I don't understand, I said. How do you feel waiting in line to see me, once to get hired and once to ask for money? Terrible, I said. If you choose to work for money, that is what life will be like. said Rich Dad. And how do you feel when Mrs. Martin dropped 3 times in your hand for 3 hours of work? I felt like it wasn't enough. It seemed like nothing. I was disappointed, I said. And that is how most employees feel when they look at their paycheck, especially after all the tax and other deduction are taken out. At least you got 100%. You mean most workers don't get paid everything? I asked with amazement. Heavens no, said Rich Dad. The government always takes its first its shares first. How do they do that? Asked. Taxes, said Rich Dad. You're taxed when you earn, you're taxed when you spend, you're taxed when you save, you're taxed when you die. Why do people let the government do that to them? The rich don't, said Rich Dad with a smile. The poor and the middle class do. I'll bet you that I earn more than your dad, yet he pays more in taxes. How can that be? I asked. At my age, that made no sense to me. Why would someone let the government do that to them? Rich Dad rocked slowly and silently in his chair, just looking at me. Ready to learn? He asked. I nodded my head slowly. As I said, there is a lot to learn. Learning how to have money work for you is a lifetime study. Most people go to college for 4 years and their education ends. I already know that my study of money will continue over a lifetime simply because the more I find out, the more I need to know. Most people never study the subject. They go to work, get their paycheck, balance their checkbook, and that's it. Then they wonder why they have the money problem. They think the more money will solve the problem and don't realize that it's their lack of financial education that is the problem. So my dad has a tax problem because he doesn't understand money. I asked, confused. Look, said Rich Dad, taxes are just one small section on learning how to have money work for you. Today, I just wanted to find out if you still have the passion to learn about money. Most people don't. They want to go to school, learn profession, have a fun at their work, and earn a lot of money. One day, they wake up with big money problems, and then they can't stop working. That's the price of only knowing how to work for money instead of studying how to have money work for you. So, do you still have the passion to learn? Asked Rich Dad. I nodded my head. Good, Rich Dad said. Now get back to work. This time I'll pay you nothing. What? I asked in amazement. You heard me. Nothing. You'll work the same 3 hours every Saturday, but this time you'll not be paid 10 cents per hour. You said you wanted to learn to not work for money, so I'm not going to pay you anything. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I have already had this conversation with Mike, and he's already working, dusting and stacking canned goods for free. You better hurry and get back there. That's not fair, I shouted. You've got to pay something. You said you wanted to learn. If you don't learn this now, you'll grow up to be like the two women and the older man sitting in my living room, working for money and hoping I don't fire them. Or like your dad, earning a lot of money only to be in debt up to his eyeballs, hoping more money will solve the problem. If that's what you want, I'll get back to our original deal of 10 cents an hour. Or you can do what most adults do, complain that there is not enough pay, quit, and go looking for another job. But what do I do? I asked. Richard tapped me on the head. Use this, he said. If you use it well, you'll soon thank me for giving you an opportunity. You'll grow into a rich man. I stood there, still not believing what a raw deal I was handed. I came to ask for a raise, and somehow I instead working for nothing. Rich dad tapped me on the head again, said, "Use this. Now get out of here and get back to work." The rich, lesson one: the rich don't work for money. I didn't tell my poor dad I wasn't being paid. He wouldn't have understood, and I didn't want to try to explain something I didn't understand myself. For 3 more weeks, Mike and I worked 3 hours every Saturday for nothing. The work didn't bother me, and the routine got easier. And it was the missed baseball game and not being able to afford to buy a few comic books that got to me. Rich Dad stopped by at the noon on the third week. We heard his truck pull up in the parking lot and sputter when the engine was turned off. He entered the store and greeted Mrs. Martin with a hug. After finding out how things were going in the store, he reached into the ice cream freezer, pulled out 2 bars, paid for them, and signaled to Mike and me, "Let's go for a walk, boys." We crossed the street, dodging a few cars, and walked across a large grassy field where a few adults were playing softball. Sitting down at a lone picnic table, he handed Mike and me the treat. "How's it going, boys?" "Okay," I said. I nodded in agreement. Mike said. I nodded in agreement. "Learning anything yet?" Rich Dad asked. Mike and I looked at each other, shrugged our shoulders, and shook our head in unison, avoiding one of life's biggest strike. "Well, you boys had better start thinking. You're staring at one of the biggest life's lesson. If you learn it, you'll enjoy a life of great freedom and security. If you don't, you'll wind up like Mrs. Martin and most of the people playing softball in this park. They work very hard for little money, clinging to the illusion of job security and looking forward to a 3 week vacation each year and maybe skimpy pension after 45 years of service. If that excites you, I'll give you a raise to 25 cents an hour. But these are good, hard working people. Are you making fun of them?" I demanded. A smile came over Rich Dad's face. "Miss Martin is like a mother to me. I would never be that cruel. I may sound unkind because I'm doing my best to point something out to the two of you. I want to expand your point of view so you can see something most people never have the benefit of seeing because their vision is too narrow. Most people never see the trap they are in." Mike and I sat there, uncertain of his message. He sounded cruel, yet we could sense he was trying to drive home a point. With a smile, Rich Dad said, "Doesn't that 25 cent an hour sounds good? Doesn't it make your heart beat a little bit faster?" I shook my head no, but it really did. 25 cent an hour would be big bucks to me. "Okay, I'll pay you $1 an hour," Rich Dad said with a sly grin. Now my heart started to race. My brain was screaming, "Take it! Take it!" I could not believe what I was hearing. Still, I said nothing. "Okay, $2 an hour." My little brain and heart nearly exploded. After all, it was 1956, and being paid $2 an hour would have made me the richest kid in the world. I couldn't imagine earning that kind of money. I wanted to say yes. I wanted the deal. I could picture a new bicycle or a new baseball gloves and the adoration of my friends when I flashed some cash. On top of that, Jimmy and his rich friend could never call me poor again. But somehow my mouth stayed shut. The ice cream had melted and was running down my hands. Rich Dad was looking at two boys staring back at him, eyes wide open and brain empty. He was testing us. He knew there was a part of our emotions that wanted to take the din. He understood that every person has a weak and needy part of their soul that can be bought. And he knew that every individual also had a part of their soul that was resilient and could never be bought. It was only a question of which one was stronger. Okay, $5 an hour. Suddenly I was silent. Something had changed. The offer was too big and ridiculous. Not many grown ups in 1956 made more than that. But quickly my temptation disappeared and calm set in. Slowly I turned to my left to look at Mike. He looked back at me. The part of my soul that was weak and needy was silenced. The part of me that had no price took over. I knew Mike gotten to the point too. Good, which Dad said softly. Most people have a price, and they have a price because of human emotions named fear and greed. First, the fear of being without money motivates us to work hard. Then, once we get that paycheck, greed or desire starts us thinking about all the wonderful things money can buy. The pattern is then set. What pattern? I asked. The pattern of get up, go to work, pay bills, get up, go to work, pay bills. People's lives are forever controlled by emotions, fear, and greed. Offer them more money, and they continue the cycle by increasing their spending. This is what I called the rat race. There's another way, Mike asked. Yes, said Rich Dad slowly, but only a few people find it. And what is that way? Mike asked. That's what I hope you boys will learn as you work and study with me. That's why I took away all forms of pay. Any hint? Mike asked. We're kind of tired of working hard, especially for nothing. Well, the first step is telling the truth, said Rich Dad. We haven't been lying, I said.